Your life is slipping through your fingers. Every day, you settle for less than you are capable of. You crave success, freedom, love, but something inside you fights tooth and nail against it. You sabotage yourself, delay your dreams, and convince yourself it's not the right time. The truth, your own mind is your enemy. It fears your potential, fears your growth, fears the life you were born to live. And until you face this internal resistance, you will remain trapped, watching others live the life that should have been yours. There is a silent war waged within every human being, a war between the life we are living and the life we are capable of embracing. And the most insidious opponent in this struggle is not circumstance, nor the judgments of others, but our own mind. It is curious and often tragic how the mind, which possesses the power to create and to dream, can simultaneously become the jailer of our potential. At the core of this resistance lies a subtle yet powerful mechanism. The mind clings to familiar pain. It is not that the mind wishes to harm us, but it is conditioned, over countless experiences and subtle imprints of life, to favor what is known, even when what is known is suffering. Consider for a moment the paradox of comfort in discomfort. Pain, whether emotional, mental, or even physical, becomes familiar. The mind grows accustomed to its presence and, in doing so, finds a strange solace in it. The routine of stress, the rhythm of dissatisfaction, the quiet resignation to mediocrity, these become the canvas upon which the mind paints its sense of security. A person may labor day after day in a position that stifles creativity and drains the soul, or remain tethered to a relationship that diminishes their spark, or continue a daily life pattern that leaves them numb. And yet the mind murmurs softly, almost conspiratorially, "Better this than the unknown." It whispers that the danger is not here, in this familiar suffering, but out there, in the uncertainty that accompanies change and possibility. Real life instances of this phenomenon are as common as they are heartbreaking. Take, for example, an individual trapped in a toxic work environment. Each day, they feel the erosion of their spirit as the job stifles their creativity and constrains their potential. And yet, despite the clarity of their unhappiness, the very act of leaving becomes terrifying. The familiar cadence of paychecks, the predictable rhythm of routine, the subtle social recognition of being productive. Within the established system, these become anchors, binding the individual to a life that no longer serves them. Neuroscience has illuminated this struggle in profound ways, revealing that during moments of uncertainty, even positive change triggers the release of stress hormones in the brain. The body reacts as though a threat is imminent, even when the mind knows, logically, that the choice may lead to freedom and fulfillment. It is as if the mind is insisting that suffering, at least, is safe, while possibility, no matter how bright, is fraught with danger. This clinging to familiar pain is a reflection of a deeper truth about human psychology. The mind has evolved not to pursue joy or fulfillment as its primary directive, but to seek safety, predictability, and survival. And so it misinterprets discomfort, the very force that accompanies growth, as a threat. The courage to leave a stifling job, to break free from a relationship that drains the spirit, to embrace a life path that is uncertain but authentic. These acts are not merely difficult, they are neurologically counterintuitive. The mind resists because it fears leaving the pain it knows, even if that pain is small, even if it is subtle, even if it is eroding the very essence of the self for the possibilities it does not yet understand. And yet, within this resistance lies an invitation. The tension between what is known and what is possible is the crucible in which transformation occurs. Every person who has dared to confront their fear of the unknown, to step beyond the familiar chains of suffering, reports a remarkable awakening of the mind, once the agent of resistance begins to align with the deeper calling of the soul. What was once terrifying becomes liberating. The discomfort, once unbearable, becomes a signal of progress. The familiar pain, once a shield, is revealed as a prison, and the door swings open to a life that resonates with authenticity, passion, and purpose. It is here that we must recognize the subtle tyranny of the familiar. The life we deserve is often not a distant dream, but a step away from the life we currently inhabit. The mind resists not because it is malicious, but because it has been trained to equate change with danger and security with comfort. To see clearly the life that awaits us, we must learn to endure the unease of transformation, to welcome the disquiet of uncertainty, and to understand that what feels like risk is, in truth, the doorway to our deepest fulfillment. Every moment spent clinging to familiar pain is a moment lost to the life that is waiting, an existence richer, fuller, and more aligned with the soul's true desires than we often allow ourselves to imagine. The challenge, then, is to recognize the mind's resistance for what it is, not an enemy to be destroyed, but a teacher to be understood. Its insistence on familiar suffering illuminates the boundaries of our comfort, revealing where courage must enter. And in facing this resistance, in stepping into the unknown despite fear, we discover the remarkable truth that the life we deserve has always been within reach. It only required the audacity to move beyond what is known. Within each of us exists a voice so subtle, so insidious, that we rarely recognize it until it has already shaped our lives. It whispers in quiet moments, in the space between thought and action, asking, "Who do you think you are?" This is the voice of the ego, the intricate structure of identity we have built over the years from the fragments of external validation, societal expectation, and habitual patterns of thought. It is the part of us that craves safety in the familiar, the known, and the easily understood. And it is precisely this ego that often stands as the greatest barrier to the life we are meant to live. The mind, in its longing for growth, is met with the ego's tremulous fear. The mind seeks expansion, seeks challenge, seeks a larger reality, yet the ego, fragile and tethered to identity, resists. Consider the nature of this resistance. Growth, real and transformative growth, demands that we confront ourselves, not superficially, but deeply. It asks us to examine the illusions we have clung to, the masks we wear to feel acceptable, and the safe patterns of behavior that have long dictated our lives. For the ego, expansion is threatening because it shakes the foundations of who we believe we are. The idea that we could become more capable, more creative, more courageous, feels like a challenge to the very identity it has meticulously constructed. To the ego, remaining small is safe. Remaining stagnant, predictable, unchallenged is comforting. I recall observing a young entrepreneur, gifted and fiercely intelligent, whose mind brimmed with ideas that could transform not only her own life, but the lives of many. Yet each time she approached the brink of action, she sabotaged herself. She procrastinated, diverted her focus, rationalized delays. On the surface, these behaviors seemed like hesitation or lack of discipline. But beneath them lay something deeper. Her ego was terrified of her own expansion. To step into her vision fully would have demanded a confrontation with uncertainty, vulnerability, and the shadows of her limitations. To embrace success would have required leaving behind the identity she had long nurtured, the safe, cautious one who fits neatly within predictable boundaries. This is a universal struggle. Every human being experiences moments when the ego whispers, subtly yet powerfully, that ambition is dangerous, that change is risky, that standing tall in one's own potential is reckless. And it is precisely in these moments that the ego's fear is most visible. It fears judgment, rejection, failure, and even the exhilaration of achievement. It prefers the quiet misery of stagnation to the disquiet of transformation. It is the mind's way of protecting itself. Yet in doing so, it holds the self hostage, denying the soul the experience of its true potential. When resistance arises, when we feel that hesitation that cannot be explained by circumstance, when doors we wish to open seem impossibly heavy, it is rarely the world conspiring against us. It is the ego trembling at the prospect of its own transformation. The ego, accustomed to the familiar, fears its own greatness. It cannot yet fathom the self that might emerge if it allows itself to expand beyond the narrow boundaries it has drawn. And yet, this fear is not a condemnation but an invitation. It is a signal that you are on the verge of growth, that your mind and spirit are reaching for a larger truth that has been waiting silently for years. The path forward requires courage not only to face the external world, but to confront the internal one. It demands recognition that every act of expansion is also an act of self-confrontation. When the ego resists, it does so out of love for the familiar, yet we must remind ourselves that true life, the life of meaning, creativity, and purpose, cannot be contained within the ego's narrow boundaries. Transformation requires stepping beyond what is comfortable, embracing the fear of becoming more, and moving forward with humility and determination. Those who have dared to meet this resistance, who have confronted the ego's fearful whispers, often speak of a liberation unlike any other. The moments of doubt, hesitation, and terror become mere thresholds, passages into a larger, more authentic life. It is in stepping beyond the ego's fear that one discovers the fullness of being, the richness of a life not dictated by the small self, but inspired by the vast, untapped potential that resides within every human soul. The lesson is profound and necessary. When you feel resistance to your own dreams, when hesitation paralyzes action, know that it is rarely the external world holding you back. It is your own ego, trembling before the magnitude of your possibility, warning you of the unknown that lies beyond the borders of identity. And it is precisely by stepping through this fear, by daring to expand despite the ego's trembling, that you will encounter the life that has been waiting for you all along, a life vast, luminous, and fully aligned with your deepest self. We carry within us silent architects of limitation, invisible forces that shape our decisions, reactions, and even our dreams without our conscious awareness. These are the hidden beliefs that tell us we are not enough, that happiness is reserved for others, that life is meant to be hard and struggle is inevitable. They are planted in us in childhood, nurtured by society, reinforced by experiences, and quietly dictate the trajectory of our lives. They do not speak aloud, yet they speak with a voice that is persistent and compelling. They are the scripts upon which our lives are unconsciously performed, and unless we illuminate them, they will continue to steer us away from the life we deserve. Consider the talented musician who avoids every opportunity to perform, claiming nervousness, procrastination, or simply bad timing. On the surface, it may seem like a lack of discipline, or perhaps mere coincidence. But beneath it lies a deeper truth, a belief so deeply embedded that it dictates action without conscious consent. The belief whispers, "If I succeed, people will expect too much of me, and I will fail." It is a belief that confuses protection with limitation, that mistakes safety and obscurity for the avoidance of risk. And so the mind, acting according to this flawed internal logic, prevents the individual from stepping into their potential, from sharing their gift with the world, from feeling the satisfaction of accomplishment. These hidden beliefs are subtle and often invisible, yet their effects are profound. They are reinforced by the patterns of our upbringing, a parent's harsh criticism, a teacher's dismissive glance, a society that rewards conformity over creativity. They become a lens through which every experience is interpreted, a filter through which opportunity is evaluated. And because these beliefs operate beneath the level of conscious thought, they are rarely questioned. We unconsciously act in ways that confirm their validity, trapped in a cycle that seems inevitable, as though fate itself were conspiring to deny us our desires. This is the cruel paradox of the hidden belief. It protects us from imagined danger, yet it simultaneously prevents the fulfillment of our most authentic life. Research in psychology illuminates the mechanisms behind this quiet tyranny. Individuals with limiting core beliefs are significantly more likely to make choices that confirm those beliefs, a phenomenon called self-fulfilling prophecy. The mind interprets the world through these unconscious lenses, and then acts to ensure that the world behaves as the mind expects. The student who believes she is incapable of success performs below her ability in every test. The entrepreneur who believes he is destined for failure hesitates at every opportunity, ensuring that success eludes him. The musician who believes she does not deserve acclaim refuses the stage, and the world never hears her song. In every case, the hidden belief, while intended to shield, becomes a barrier, a shadow, a form of subtle imprisonment. What is most tragic about this resistance is that it often masquerades as rationality or prudence. The mind convinces us that we are being cautious, careful, realistic. It whispers that risk is dangerous, that striving is foolish, that our ambitions are excessive. And in the process, it robs us of joy, fulfillment, and the deep satisfaction that comes from realizing our potential. The hidden beliefs are not inherently malicious. They are the mind's attempt at self-preservation, but they are blind, flawed, and profoundly limiting. Yet there is hope, and the path toward liberation begins with awareness. To recognize these beliefs is to bring them into the light, to examine their origins, to question their validity, and to see them for what they are: old scripts that no longer serve the life we were meant to live. The process is not easy, for these beliefs are entrenched, often defended by fear and habit. But each step of questioning, each moment of conscious choice against the pull of these invisible forces, weakens their power. The more we confront them, the more we discover that what we feared would break us, success, recognition, growth, is in fact what completes us. The mind resists the life we deserve because, in its flawed logic, it seeks to protect us from shame, failure, disappointment, and the unknown. It mistakes safety for limitation and comfort for preservation. But when we begin to illuminate the hidden beliefs, to confront them with courage and honesty, we create space for transformation. We discover that the life we have long imagined is not a distant fantasy, but a reality that awaits the willingness to step beyond the scripts that have constrained us. In facing these beliefs, we reclaim our power, embrace our potential, and take the first steps toward a life that is fully, richly, and authentically ours. Within every human being resides a shadow, an often unseen and unacknowledged part of the self, composed of fears, impulses, memories, and desires that we refuse to confront. This shadow is not merely a collection of weaknesses or flaws. It is a mirror of the hidden aspects of our psyche, the parts of ourselves that we have repressed or denied, fearing what they might reveal. It is in this shadow that much of our resistance to growth and opportunity originates. While the conscious mind longs for achievement, fulfillment, and authentic expression, the shadow quietly works in the background, shaping choices, whispering doubts, and erecting barriers that we may not even recognize as self-imposed. The shadow is a master of subtlety. It does not announce itself with fanfare, yet its influence is undeniable. It tells us we are not ready, that we are unworthy, that striving further is dangerous, that we should stop trying, settle, or remain small. And unless we recognize and confront it, the shadow will continue to block the path to the life we deserve. Consider the story of a woman who longed to start her own nonprofit organization, a venture that could have brought profound change to her community. Every day, she found reasons to delay, distractions that seemed legitimate, obstacles that appeared insurmountable. The surface explanation appeared rational: lack of time, uncertainty about funding, fear of failure. Yet beneath these surface excuses lay a more subtle and powerful truth. Her shadow feared visibility. She feared that stepping fully into her potential, achieving success, and assuming influence would expose parts of herself that she had long kept hidden, that she would no longer be able to remain invisible and safe. Once she confronted this fear directly, explored its roots, and recognized it as a part of herself, rather than an external threat, doors that had previously seemed locked began to open. Opportunities that had appeared unattainable became accessible, and the life she had long envisioned began to take shape. The shadow operates in this quiet, persistent manner because the mind prefers the illusion of safety to the discomfort of self-exploration. Confronting the shadow is inherently challenging. It requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to meet parts of oneself that are uncomfortable or even disturbing. It asks us to recognize the patterns of thought and behavior that have long dictated our lives, the fears that have held us back, the impulses we have denied, and the desires we have hidden from others and, at times, from ourselves. The shadow, in effect, holds the keys to our deepest potential, yet it also serves as a guardian of our comfort, ensuring that we remain within familiar boundaries. Even when those boundaries prevent our growth, the resistance that arises from the shadow is often subtle enough to be misinterpreted as caution, self-discipline, or even pragmatism. The voice that whispers, "You're not ready," or "Wait a little longer," can feel reasonable, even wise, yet it is frequently an echo of unacknowledged fear. This is why many talented, capable, and ambitious individuals fail to realize their potential. The mind, seeking to protect the ego from perceived risk, unconsciously enlists the shadow to maintain stasis, even at the cost of joy, fulfillment, and the realization of one's deepest purpose. Every hesitation, every rationalized delay, every inner resistance can often be traced to this hidden force, an internal guardian that confuses safety with limitation. Psychologically, the shadow represents what we have disowned, often because society, culture, or personal experiences have labeled certain impulses, feelings, or desires as unacceptable. Over time, these disowned elements accumulate in the unconscious, influencing our decisions in ways we cannot see. Every avoidance, every procrastination, every self-sabotaging behavior can be interpreted as the shadow asserting itself, not to punish, but to protect. A flawed, misdirected protection that nonetheless prevents the emergence of our full selves. Yet there is profound power in acknowledging the shadow. To confront it is to reclaim the aspects of ourselves that have been denied and to integrate them into conscious awareness. It is a recognition that every fear, every impulse, every memory that the shadow guards is also a source of insight, creativity, and strength. When we dare to look honestly at what we have hidden, we discover that the doors we feared were locked were never truly barred. They only appeared closed until we brought the light of awareness to illuminate them. By embracing the shadow, by acknowledging and integrating its lessons, rather than fleeing from its discomfort, the life we deserve begins to unfold. What once felt perpetually out of reach becomes attainable, and we begin to move in harmony with the full, authentic self. The shadow is not an enemy to be conquered, but a guide to be understood. Its resistance is the mind's attempt at preservation, yet it is through this very confrontation that the boundaries of possibility expand. Until the shadow is embraced, until the uncomfortable truths within ourselves are acknowledged rather than avoided, the life we long for will continue to feel tantalizingly close yet frustratingly unattainable. And it is only in facing the shadow that we discover that the path to opportunity, creativity, and authentic fulfillment has been within us all along, waiting for the courage to step fully into the light. Transformation is rarely gentle, and it is never comfortable. The mind instinctively resists it because the process of change feels like loss long before it reveals the gain. Every step toward growth involves leaving behind what is familiar, shrinking the comfort zones we have meticulously built over the years, habits we relied upon, relationships we depended on, even aspects of our personality that once defined us may dissolve under the weight of transformation. The mind interprets this not as evolution but as deprivation. It reacts with fear, with resistance, with hesitation, as though the very act of becoming more is a threat rather than an invitation. And yet, this is the paradox at the heart of human development. The very discomfort that seems unbearable is the precursor to freedom, to fulfillment, to the life we were meant to inhabit. The process of transformation triggers deep psychological responses. Studies in behavioral psychology have revealed that humans are far more motivated to avoid loss than to achieve gain. This phenomenon, known as loss aversion, explains why even positive change feels threatening. The temporary discomfort of stepping beyond the familiar triggers fear responses in the brain, often stronger than the attraction of potential success. The mind, seeking safety, clings to the known, even when the known limits our potential and stifles our growth. It whispers that the risk is too great, that the familiar, even if it is small or limiting, is preferable to the uncertainty of change. And so, we hesitate, we postpone, we rationalize our inertia, convincing ourselves that the timing is wrong, that we are not ready, that it will not work. Yet the stories of those who embrace transformation reveal a profound truth: the sense of loss is temporary, while the gain is enduring. Consider the person who leaves a stable job to pursue a passion, a calling that has long been muted beneath layers of fear and obligation. The decision may feel reckless, terrifying, even foolhardy. Initially, it may seem as though everything is being taken away: security, predictability, recognition, and a sense of identity anchored in the familiar. But with each step forward, a new reality begins to emerge. Opportunities that once seemed unattainable become accessible. Creativity and energy that were dormant awaken. The life that unfolds is richer, fuller, and more aligned with the authentic self than the life that was abandoned. Those who make this leap consistently report that the loss was fleeting and that the abundance that followed far exceeded what they had imagined possible. This pattern holds true not only in careers but in every sphere of human experience. Emotional, spiritual, and intellectual growth all demand an initial surrender, a letting go of the old to make room for the new. Friendships may shift as we evolve, revealing who truly supports our growth and who clings to our past self. Habits that once offered comfort may be discarded, exposing us to vulnerability and uncertainty. Even deeply ingrained ways of thinking, once thought to define who we are, may dissolve under the pressure of transformation. The mind experiences this as deprivation because it measures change against what has been rather than what is becoming. It resists not because the transformation is harmful, but because the familiar feels safer than the unknown potential that awaits. There is, however, a profound lesson embedded within this discomfort. The fear and resistance we feel are signs that we are on the threshold of growth. They mark the boundary between the old self and the new, between limitation and possibility. To move forward, we must learn to sit with the unease, to endure the temporary losses, and to trust that the process itself carries the seeds of abundance. Every experience of discomfort is a signal that transformation is occurring, that the familiar must dissolve to allow the authentic self to emerge. The loss is real, but it is a necessary passage, and it is fleeting compared to the enduring richness of life that follows. The mind will always resist at first, for it clings to what is known, what is safe, what is comfortable. Yet to honor the call of the soul, to step into the life we deserve, we must move beyond this resistance. Every individual who has embraced the uncertainty of transformation, who has endured the temporary disorientation of loss, discovers that what emerges is a life aligned with their deepest values, their highest potentials, and their truest self. What initially felt like deprivation is revealed as liberation, and what seemed frightening becomes the threshold to a life of profound authenticity, creativity, and fulfillment. Transformation, then, is never loss without gain. It is the dissolution of the old self to allow the emergence of the authentic self. It is the surrender of comfort to step into courage. And it is only when we allow ourselves to move through the discomfort, to trust the process, and to endure the temporary void, that the life we have long imagined becomes a reality, richer, fuller, and infinitely more aligned with the essence of who we are meant to be. Your mind resists the life you deserve not to punish you, but because it is unaccustomed to your potential. The resistance is a mirror, reflecting what must be faced, healed, and understood. If you learn to sit with the discomfort, confront your shadow, question limiting beliefs, and step beyond the ego's fear, you will find the life waiting for you, not in distant dreams, but within reach, in the very steps you resist taking today.